When researching, planning, and constructing all my tasks, I use the internet to help me. The first task I researched on my blog was about the history of newspapers, which I Googled. I then decided to research all types of newspapers and break down the two most popular types of newspapers, which are broadsheets and tabloids. I used Google Images and Paint to annotate the characteristics of each newspaper. I chose to do this as a way of understanding the forms and conventions of broadsheets and tabloids. It also helped me to see the differences in both newspapers. I then researched the target audiences of other newspapers, and because of this research, I was able to identify who my target audience would be. In order for me to understand my target audience and to produce a newspaper that would reflect them, I chose to do some audience research on the people of Blackheath and the area of Blackheath itself. To do this, I used Google and Google Images. I then decided to create a questionnaire which I would only ask to my target audience of 16 to 19-year-olds. I chose to use a questionnaire as a way of finding out what teenagers liked and disliked about newspapers, what they wanted to see in a newspaper, and most importantly, if they even read newspapers. To create my questionnaire, I used Microsoft Word and the outcome looked like this. I wanted to show the results of my questionnaire using pie charts, and to do this, I used Paint. Overall, I think the questionnaire really helped in establishing what I was going to feature on my newspaper. Our media group was lucky enough to visit the Engine Group, a creative company which offers marketing services. This trip enabled us to see the process of how companies create posters and adverts. We were able to create creative brief documents for both ancillary tasks and the main task. Before creating my newspaper, I had so much to consider, including the font. I went through all the fonts on Microsoft Word, and I liked some, but I still didn't feel content. I then Googled fonts and stumbled upon a website called DaFont. DaFont has a range of fonts, but I finally found Wanted MS4, which is the font I chose for my masthead. When it came to the colours I wanted on my newspaper, I was certain that I didn't want red, as most newspapers use red. I was also certain that I wanted to use blue, green, and black. I used the colour swatch on Adobe Illustrator, which helped me choose the exact shades of green and blue. I had my layout planned, and this was created using Paint. All that was left for me to do was actually create my newspaper. In order to do so, I used Adobe Illustrator. I had initially started creating my newspaper on Microsoft Word, and it began looking more and more like a magazine, which is why I ended up using Adobe. I also used Microsoft Word at first to create my poster, and it was far too simple and could have been a bit more creative. I then decided to recreate my poster and brainstorm some new ideas. As I was brainstorming ideas, I listed crossword puzzles, and that is when I decided to create a crossword in the form of a poster. Before creating my poster, I had to analyze other posters used to advertise newspapers. This helped me understand what I needed my posters to have to ensure it was successful in advertising my newspaper. The analysis of this poster was done using Paint and an image from Google Images. I also analyzed other radio adverts before creating my own radio advert. This allowed me to establish the forms and conventions of radio adverts. To analyze these adverts, I used YouTube. I then created my radio advert on the software GarageBand, where I recorded the main girl in my advert. Using GarageBand, I managed to manipulate and loop sounds where I wanted them to go. I then uploaded the final outcome onto SoundCloud, which is a site used for people to upload audio sounds. For the evaluation, I used different websites. For question 1, I wanted to compare real media products to my productions. In order to do so, I used Google Images. I also used Paint to annotate similarities and differences. I then saved each annotation as a JPEG and put it onto PowerPoint. I then saved the PowerPoint I created and uploaded it onto SlideShare. For question 2, I used Prezi to break down each task and have an explanation as to how effective is the combination of my main task and ancillary. For question 3, I asked 2 boys and 2 girls within the age boundary of my target audience what they liked and disliked about all my tasks. I interviewed each person and created a slideshow on YouTube. For question 4, I used iMovie to create this video. I also use Google Images for most of the screenshots seen in this video.